Actually, the way I came here, I flipped the coin. It's the truth. No, it's not. That wasn't funny, was it? So much for my introduction. All right. So, I spilled water. I'm really excited to be here. Really love being in the city, and I really think God has something real special for the city. And I know that's like the typical thing people say, but it's really true, and I'll kind of tell you why. I'm not much of a big crier. I don't cry a lot, actually. I cry at funerals. First time I really cried was when the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the final episode, I didn't know that they played reruns. It's a true story. I used to come home from school every day, and at 4 o'clock, my brother and I would watch it. And I didn't even know what reruns were. I didn't even realize that's what I was watching. And they started from the beginning, and they get to the last episode, and it's over. And I start crying. And my brother's like, "Why are you crying?" I was like, "What am I supposed to do every day between 4 and 4:30 now that the Fresh Prince is over?" I was like, "I love this show." Like, I was so hurt and so distraught. Then I got home the next day, and they started over, and I found out what reruns were. And I felt dumb. And I quit crying after that. It's like, never wasting tears, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I'll tell you what I did cry about. So I just got into town on Tuesday from Florida. I went home to visit. Charlie was saying from Florida. And my friend was running a little late to pick me up. And I was just sitting outside, just kind of thinking about Austin and thinking about the city. And I never do this, but I really just started weeping over the city. And I wasn't weeping like sad. I guess weeping is the wrong term. But I was crying, and not because I was sad. I was crying because I felt like I could really feel the Lord's heart for the city. And I've never actually really felt that before. Like just sitting on an airport terminal, waiting to get picked up, and just kind of feeling a download of the Lord's heart, of God's dream and desire for this city. It's a beautiful thing, We're not just, I just want to encourage you, like all these ministries and all these things that we're doing, they're so important. And really what we're doing, if you partner with Midnight Ministries or whatever it is you partner with, really what you're partnering with is God. That's like the big thing we got to get. We don't partner with people, we partner with God. That's why sometimes God can call you to even work with people you don't even like. And oftentimes, the reason we don't like working with people we don't like is because we don't really partner with God. We're out for our own interests and to build our own kingdoms. But if we're really about Jesus and we're really about building the kingdom of heaven, then we'll walk with whoever the Lord tells us to. And God's been dreaming about this city. God's a dreamer. That's why you dream. Everything about you is only a picture and a revelation of who God really is. The reason you dream is because God dreams. Right? The reason you weep is because God weeps. The reason you laugh is because God laughs. And God has a dream. And that's what I want to talk to us about tonight. What God's been dreaming about. That kind of thing blows my mind just thinking about that. I think about that. I love to think. It's my hobby. And what I do in flights, if I can't sleep, or if I'm driving somewhere, I like to look out the window and just think about things that I don't understand, I don't comprehend, just to kind of kill the time. One of the things I like to think about often is the fact that God is a dreamer and God is dreaming. And what's even crazier, I can't wrap my mind around, is that the very thing God is dreaming about, the very thing He's been dreaming about before the foundations of the world, is every single person in this room. And see, what's dangerous, and what we often do too often, especially for those of us that grew up in the church. I didn't grow up in the church. Things like that become so monotonous. The most dangerous thing we can do is ever consider ourselves to be spiritual or scriptural authorities. Well, we've had it all figured out, and we've heard it for so long, and we've somehow caught a grip on these things. That should wreck us. It should floor us. God's dreaming about you right now. He literally created and fashioned. He literally put together the entire universe with the dream in mind. And it's this, to walk with us, to have intimacy with us. He prefers us. I'm preaching this to you, and somehow in my mind and in my heart, I'm trying to understand this and grasp this. Just think about this. Since before the earth and before us, angels have existed, right? And they give God perfect worship. They have all their eyes, there's no sin in them. They don't worship 1 minute and then the next minute gossip about their neighbor. I mean, these angels are literally busy worshiping and waiting on the Lord and looking at Him. And for I don't know how long, this is what God has. And it's like the Father looks at the Son, looks at the Spirit, and says, there's something longing in my heart. And it's Adam, it's man. There's this dream I have. I don't know what it looked like, so I'm just using my imagination. And it's important that we use our imagination. And God at some point is just looking at all this and worship in heaven, and He's like, this is so awesome, this is great. I mean, all they do is reveal mysteries about me, but I have a dream. There's something inside of my heart that I won't be able to rest. You know when God rested? When He created the whole world. He says, I can't find rest until I make myself a home with this thing in my heart called man. That's why that scripture, I'm about to get into something, but that scripture in Jerusalem, don't give day or night, don't give rest, because God didn't find rest until He made a dwelling place. And God is still looking for a dwelling place, and He's still looking for a home. God's still dreaming, and He's still aching, and He's still longing, and He's still believing, and that dream has never changed. It's always been to walk with man in the cool of the day in a garden. And it's never changed. Like all this stuff we hear, plan B. There's never been a plan B. God still has the same plan to walk with man in the cool of the day. It's important to know that. So, John chapter 1, it's a passage we're all familiar with. I'll just tell it to you, I'll read it to you briefly. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and He was with God in the beginning. And through Him all things are made, and without Him was not anything made that has been made. What did God create the world through? A word. And there's so much you can get into that and about words and all that, but I'm trying to be as practical as possible and time conscious as possible. What exactly is a word? You ever thought about what is the definition of a word? What is a word? A word is a physical manifestation, is a physical representation of an idea, of a thought, of a dream, or an emotion. Right? The way we understand the world without even realizing, this is something they'll teach you in a course about language, theory of human communication. That the whole world is a grid. The way humans see the world is through a grid, and this grid is words. Everything that we see, the way we understand what's going on right now is through words. Words literally allow us to be present in reality. That's good. The way we create technology, the way we create families, and the way love happens is words. The way we understand life is through words. So God had a dream. God had an idea. And He sent forth the word, Jesus. This is what's powerful about Jesus. He is the perfect picture, the perfect representation of God's dream for humanity. Unbroken, unceasing, unyielding, unending fellowship with man. That's the powerful thing about Jesus. He was fully man and fully God, but there was no breakdown, there was no division in Him. There was perfect union with Him and God. And so often we overlook that as we study theology and we study things. Friends, here's the important thing to understand. What Jesus was is God's dream and desire for every single person in this room. That there would be no veils, and that there would be no walls. This whole idea, we're on this mission of night and day worship and rebuilding the tabernacle of David. That's not some new dream. That didn't start with David. Yeah. It's not even the tabernacle of David. It's the tabernacle of God, because He fashioned the world. He literally created the universe because He was longing to tabernacle with David. Instead of what we really should call it, instead of the tabernacle of David, it's the tabernacle with David, because it's God's anyways. God fashions the whole world through this idea that this thing He's going to create called man would do so much more than just worship Him and sing songs, but would literally dwell with Him and live with Him. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. We can't allow something like this. We can't allow the presence of God to become a nominal thing that we talk about. It should set a fire and a burning passion in our hearts that we can't live life the same way when we understand that God is dreaming and what He's about is intimacy with humanity. It makes me want to deal with my sin and deal with my character. It literally affects the way that I dream. And so many people, I used to do college ministry, everybody has all these dreams to do this stuff, and that's great. But if you really want to get on something, go dream with God. Intimacy, unbroken, unceasing fellowship with God. Like, more than preaching sermons and writing books, dream about pleasing Him and walking with Him. Because it's what He's dreaming about. He's never stopped dreaming about it. So this is what Jesus comes to do. Jesus came to do a lot more than to keep us from going to hell and to get us to go to heaven, because one day all that's going to pass away. He did so much more than to come, than to give you tongues. Jesus came to do so much more than to give you a ministry. Jesus literally came to reestablish worship on the earth and to build God a home. Go to Zechariah chapter 6.
Yeah, come on.
So, Zechariah chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 12. It's a messianic prophecy about Jesus. Behold the man. This is where, I just want to stop here. This is where it begins. I love doing this with verses and stuff. We've been beholding too many other things in church rather than the only thing God's ever called us to set our eyes on. Behold the man. You want to know your destiny? Behold the man. You want to know your calling in life? Behold the man. You want to know what God's will for Austin, Texas is? Behold the man. And you know what it means to behold? To literally, with your eyes, hold on to the object upon which you're gazing on. With your eyes, to physically grab hold of this man named Jesus and say, you are exactly what God wants for me. That's why, when we talk about this so often in Matthew 16, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Well, blessed are you. Why? Because when you catch a picture of Him, what you're really catching a picture of is what God designed and destined for you.
Oh, come on.
That's why what He looks like in Revelation isn't what He looked like on earth. What He looks like on earth is what we should look like. Fellowship never ending. That's why He doesn't need temples. We're so busy wanting to build buildings, and He's looking for hearts. So Zechariah chapter 6. Behold the man whose name is the branch. From his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Yes, he shall build the temple. He shall build the temple of the Lord. He shall bear the glory, and he shall sit and rule on his throne. So he shall be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. What does Jesus come to do on the earth? So much more than for you to die and go to heaven. Jesus literally comes on the earth with a mission, and it's to build His Father a home. It's to build a dwelling place for God. Jesus didn't come with shovels. Jesus didn't come with hammers and nails. Jesus didn't come... You know what He came with? He came with a bunch of parables about gardens. Jesus came with seeds. It's important to understand this. This is what Peter tells us. You're not born again with the corruptible seed, but the incorruptible seed. Jesus came, not come in, here's the deal. Men build their kingdoms. The Lord spoke this to me one time right before I moved here. Men build their kingdoms and edifices and buildings. God builds His in a garden. Men display their glory with golden statues. God displays His glory on trees with a thing called fruit. We build plaques to our name. We hang our heroes. You know where we hang our heroes? On mountains. We make mountains out of them. We make gold bronze statues. You know how God comes? He hangs on trees. God, everything, that's why Jesus hangs on a tree. Because He came as a gardener to build God a garden. Because God always and still walks with man in the cool of the day in a garden. Wow. Jesus came building a garden. That's why His parables often have to do with gardeners. That's why the most important parable He said is the parable of the sower. He says, if you don't get this parable, you won't understand another thing about the kingdom. Because what I've come to do, I'm here to rebuild the tabernacle of David. I'm here to build my Father a home. And if you don't understand the method by which I'm doing it, you'll miss it. Behold the man. Love it. It's what we need in this hour. You want a picture of what God's doing? Look at Jesus. You want a picture of what your family should look like? Look at Jesus. You want a picture of what a prayer life and a worship life should look like? Look at Jesus. You don't really need books or conferences. What we really need are conferences where we spend an entire week in But we can be holding the man. The actual blueprint, the very dream of God. Jesus comes, says here to build God a temple. Isn't it funny? When they're talking about the very temple, and they're like, look at this temple. And he's like, that thing's going to fall. It's going to break into pieces. And it didn't move Jesus. He didn't weep over it. He wept over the people, but not over the building, because he knew where God really lived and where God really wanted to live. He wasn't moved that the works of our hands. Jesus wasn't afraid that the works of our hands would crumble. See, often the thing we're afraid about is that the works of our hands are crumble, our buildings and our ideas. And then Jesus comes to play with dirt and to build a garden. And we can't handle it. Because you want to know how we're going to start rebuilding the tabernacle of David? Our building's got to start falling first. He has no problem, so every stone here won't be left unturned. And I'm not even going to try to stop it, because it's not even what it's about. Why does Jesus come as a gardener? What's this whole thing I'm saying? Sometimes when I preach this thing, sometimes I feel like maybe people think I'm crazy. God comes to build a garden. Why does he come to build a garden? It's back to Genesis. It's still his desire. It's still the dream. God, I love this. There's a friend of mine that turned me on to this Jewish rabbi philosopher named Abraham Joshua Heschel, and he says this. You know that day that man fell? This is the way that we act. This is the way that we treat that story. We came walking, so we fall, we sin, and we come walking in the garden looking for God, and God was hiding and ashamed of us. But the way the story really went, is God came walking in the garden in the cool of the day for his daily walk with Adam, and Adam was hiding behind a bush. And I believe that to this day, God is still walking in the garden in the cool of the day and looking for Adam. So he sends the second Adam as a picture of what God would do. So where does God build his home? Where does God build his temple? In the hearts of men. This thing never occurred to me. You ever thought about why God raised us out of dirt? Not out of a tree, not out of a building, not out of fruit. Literally, the place that God forms humanity is out of dirt. You ever thought, I don't understand that. You are literally dirt. You're glorified dirt. You know what dust is? Dead human skin. Why? Why does God make you out of dirt? Because he intended for you to be a garden. He intended for you to be a dwelling place. That's why we're born again with incorruptible seed. What do you do with seed? You sow it in dirt and you sow it in a garden. How does Jesus come to build the very temple and dwelling place of God? He comes as a gardener to the broken and hard places of our hearts. And he's not afraid to put our hands in there and play in our dirt and begin to sow seed. So the way he builds a home, he doesn't build buildings, he builds gardens. He builds wisdom and revelation. That's why the fruit of the Spirit is so important. God's looking for a place to walk. In your heart. Most of our hearts, this is what it looks like. Jeremiah 4, break up to follow God, remove the thorns. That's what we feel like. You know, Steve earlier was talking about the thing we used to believe. So many of you are sitting here today feeling so broken and so empty and so far away from God because your heart is a wilderness. It's a broken place. And you feel far away, but the thing is, you haven't been really willing to allow God to come in and break up that ground. And to turn that wilderness, to turn that hard place into an oasis, in a place where there's fertile soil, where God can build a home. This is God's dream for you, so much more than this monotonous, material, nominal world. His dream is to live in you. God's looking for a home, and what it's going to take is burning, vibrant hearts that are willing to allow themselves to go through any process necessary. That's why it says in Song of Solomon, I sleep but my heart is awake. Because there is a love that I've experienced. There are these hands that are breaking it open. And the byproduct is that when he's done with me, I'll be a dwelling place for the living, present God. You want a real sign and wonder in this city? More than signs, more than miracles and healings? God God dwelling in your city. It's the greatest sign and wonder we can give this city, is that God lives in this city. Because usually the big question about God is never, why aren't the sick being here? Why aren't the dead being raised? The question is always, where's God? The issue is that there is a people that have not been willing to go through the process to allow God to fulfill His dream, to break open our hearts, to deal with the crap that we got in there, to pull out whatever needs to be pulled out, to begin to sow the seed of His dreams. We spend so much time trying to build houses of prayer rather than being houses of prayer. You're the house of prayer that God's been talking about. You're the house of prayer for all nations. You're the very dream of God since before the foundations of the world.
Yes, sir.
What's going to change this city so much more than outreach is covenant. What's going to change this city is presence. What's going to change this city is a dwelling place. A place where God lives. So that for once and for all we can answer the age-old question, where is God? He's here. So that from your heart, as you walk everywhere you go, God begins to say, Adam, I've come to walk with you. What Adams are you coming in contact with that God is looking for a garden from which He can sing and cry out? That out of your heart, God can say, Austin, I've come to walk with you. Come out from behind the bush. I think it wrecks me. I'm just, talking here and I'm trying to do a condensed version of this. But I can't help but have my heart stirred for the very fact that God is literally sitting in heaven and there's an aching in His heart right now. And it's for every single one of us. That God longs for our presence more than we long for His presence. God longs for covenant with us more than we long for it with Him. God's madly in love with us and He's dreaming and He's looking for a people that won't leave Him homeless. Every time we allow unforgiveness and bitterness and we allow our hearts to grow cold and hard, what we're really doing is kicking God out. What we're really doing is leaving God homeless in our city. We need to partner with Jesus and begin to build God a home. We need to partner with the dream of God and the prayers of God. Jesus has been making intercession sitting at the right hand of the Father, and He's praying the same prayer to give my Father a home. And that home is you. Your heart. This is the importance of having a vibrant, burning heart. It isn't for show. It isn't about volume. It isn't about anything else. But that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would have a resting place. So, I'm going to do this one short. I want to get the band to come up. I don't want to so I can go for a really long time. An hour and a half more. But I won't. Just want to get right to the point. Very simple, very basic, 20 minutes. And it's this. You walk away with anything else. It's so important that we get this. God is dreaming. He's been dreaming since before there was even an idea of what time was. And He literally fashioned the entire universe with a dream. This dream was a home. And this home is us. The need of this hour in Austin is to not leave God homeless and barren, not to leave God without a place to live and to rest His head. What we need in this hour are hearts that are willing to go through whatever process, whatever breaking process. That we would begin to dream and partner with God. That maybe you sit here tonight and you feel like your heart is a barren, dry wilderness. But you want to leave here tonight with a garden for God to walk with you in the cool of the day. If you're looking for a calling, you're looking for a purpose, it's not found in a vocation. It's not found in whether you're an apostle or prophet. Your identity is in intimacy with Him. Yes. Who you are is found in dwelling with God. If you need a dream, I want you to dream for this tonight. I won't give rest. I won't live normal life until in this city, in this heart, in my home, God has found a resting place. You know what prayers God answers? His. It's what the prayers He answers are His. And I think another thing, every time God looks at you, because one of the things we really deal with is that spirit of rejection. I know because I've dealt with it. But the Lord began to show me another reason why He raises us out of dirt, and I think this is powerful. I've never had a kid before. One day I will, Lord willing. Hey. But there's something powerful. I'm sure what it's like to be a father and your kid's eyes open up the first time and they look at you. Sure, you know what that's like, locking eyes with your children for the first time. The reason God raises you out of dirt, what God thinks of every time He sees you, is this. That moment He formed man, that moment He took man out of the dirt, put His lips against his and breathed life, and man's eyes opened and they locked eyes for the first time. God saw the thing He dreamed about and desired for ages upon ages. And so many of us are walking so purposeless and so empty and so dry because they're feeling so rejected. But every time God looks at you, He's remembering the first time our eyes was open and He breathed life into us and a dream came alive. There I have found a resting place. There I have found a dwelling place. God's dreaming tonight. And He's been dreaming for all of the ages and all of eternity. And it's you. And what we need to do tonight, what we need to do for the rest of our lives, is respond to that dream and say, as long as I live, God will have a resting place, a dwelling place in this city. As long as there's breath in my lungs, you will have a resting place. As long as there's a heart in this body, it will remain vibrant and burning. Let's stand to our feet.